are we starting the pod, Jorgensen?
Yeah, I guess this would be the official start of episode 1.
Last time I did a podcast was Halo 5 era, and that was terrible. So we're going to hope that this is not going to be terrible, because that would be unfortunate to say the least.
Yeah, and this is my first time doing a podcast, so yeah, it's going to be a new territory for me.
So we're going to talk about a few things today, but we're going to be jumping into ours to begin with, because I thought there's no better way for you to know how terrible we are at level design than for us to be reviewing our own maps and then giving critiques to each other. I think that's very important and hopefully slightly interesting as a first topic. So I'm going to let Yurgy go first about my map, because blooming heck, it's an interesting one to say the least. So to give some context, I made it originally in Halo 5 based on Halo CE, so already an interesting origin there. And then when I joined the Splitgate map editor community, I remade it for Splitgate, and it was an interesting experience trying to convert an existing map that I'd already made for a specific intent into a map that could function in a completely new meta, not only one that worked in a completely different sandbox and stratagem that I'd never really experienced before. It's not just going from Gears of War to Halo, but it's also the entire meta of the way people play, the way people push, the way map rotation works, and pacing especially works. Completely changes the pace of things. So the map is called Death Row. There will be the codes for Splitgate for the maps in the description below if you want to check them out yourself. But I'm going to let Yurgy go ahead and absolutely rinse me and my map right now.
So I'm going to actually start out by pointing out the one thing I do really like about this is the line of sight.
There we go.
I'm not saying I don't like more. I'm saying this is the one thing that really shines on his map. It's going to be the line of sights that he's set up for portaling. There's certain portals that you can hit from only certain lines of sights on the map that allow essential movement around the map. It's not something you really see a lot from someone when they come and make their first map in Splitgate, even if they are an experienced level designer. I feel it takes a lot of time playing the game and building maps before you get a good feel of that. One thing I definitely think needs work is the balancing of the weapons on the map. That is another thing where on your first map in Splitgate, it's not easy to really know unless you've played a lot of Splitgate.
I want to just quickly have a segue there on that, because I remember when I made the map in Halo 5, I was just like, I have the shotgun, I have a few of the kind of mid-tier weapons, and I don't think I have rockets on it. God, it's so long since I've seen it now. It's hard to remember all the weapons that I do have. I know there's a brute plasma, and I know that there's a, what would it be in? I'm trying to think what it was in Halo. You know what? I genuinely, there's a brute plasma. I'm sure there's carbines, and there is a shotgun. I thought there was a sword, but there might well not be. Yeah, I'll have to go and have a look and see if I can find out what it was. But when I moved it into Splitgate, and I was like, oh, all these weapons are here and all that, and you see a shotgun, or you see the rockets and the plasma and all the weapons that you have in Splitgate, and I inherently didn't expect half the sandbox to be power weapons. That was so I was like, oh, it's just a plasma. It's probably just like a normal plasma rifle, and then it's just some power weapon as well. So no, I totally agree. But I also have the bat as well as the drop down for mid. So I guess my question to you is what would you want me to change? What do you think would be the optimal sandbox?
So I like having BFB where it is. I feel like you put that in an optimal spot. Maybe getting rid of shotgun and either get rid of plasma or rocket launchers. Keep either one. I know some people prefer rockets, but some people prefer plasma. I feel like both actually work on your map. They aren't overpowered, and but at the same time, they definitely add a reward to going to grab them. The other thing I'd say too is where you have rockets probably isn't a good spot for balancing, because what I've noticed is blue team off spawn always has the advantage to rockets off spawn.
Yeah, that was one thing that I think a few people brought up to me, was because it is an interesting thing, like I say, when it's your first map, and you do have to really think about who's got priority on what weapon, because it's not the same thing that we used to do on Halo, where you just put them kind of equidistant around the map. And then it's just about how you move around the map. It's like, hey, if there's a portal near it's whoever gets nearest to another portal first, basically. So it completely breaks that flow.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a lot of it's who can get the line of sight to the portal that's closest to it first. And like with this weapon spawn in particular, blue spawn can look right at the portal before they even spawn, where red team, they have to either triple portal to get a sight on it, or they have to walk out a lot farther before they can get a sight on it.
No, I agree. I think it's a valid point. I wonder if inherently, because I think plasma's in a good spot. That was my initial thought, because it's like the weapon you fight off of base, and it's a contestion's point. But the thing that I also think is maybe what I would almost be...
No, let me take a look quick. I think you're right. Plasma is one of the better spots, because both teams have a portal to it off spawn, so it'd be a high point.
And to me, that like segments the map well as well, because it basically all the power weapons are in a division line at that point, so they all go diagonally across the map, because you have shotgun, which is as we look from red spawn bottom right, bat is in the middle drop down, and then plasma is in the top left corridor. So not only are they diagonally across the map, but they're diagonally in height as well, which is really nice for a map that I almost feel works diagonally like that. Like you see that kind of play strategy work in the same way. Like, that bottom corner, you see like there's the shotgun. So the shotgun where that is, that does get a general lot of play as well. People use that area. It's a good spawn point. But then there's a lot of contention, because where the plasma is, that holding down that area and controlling that space gives you direct line of sight to effectively both spawns, initial spawns, and it's a really good place to hold a lot of cover, because it's well segmented from the rest of the map. And it allows you to kind of like keep control over like two key points of the map. So inherently those two opposite corners are what hold a lot of the weight. So I think it's still important to kind of fuel that. The only thing that I would say maybe is almost doing it in the opposite. But then again, it throws off the counterbalance with the teams. Because if you did it the opposite way, that's going spawn to spawn. Because they spawn bottom left to top right. So it's a bit of an interesting one, bit of a slightly difficult one, but I agree. I think taking the rockets off would probably help the map a lot. So I'll getting off sandbox, because we've been rambling on about that for a little while. Anything else?
I can feel like in the windows that you and Colma like to use a lot, as much as I love the utility of them, at times they can get misleading and confusing for some people. You almost feel like at times you should be able to go through.
Where specifically is this on the map?
This is the one specifically is on the bottom. It's one I both love and hate, because when you're up at blue spawn, it makes for a great portal down into bottom red.
Oh, yeah, but I know what you mean.
But when you're in mid, it's in such a way where you almost feel like you should be able to like jump.
Do you think that area would be better if there was just a doorway?
Honestly, I think so, because it would make the red team maybe feel a little less trapped.
Because that's what I mean. I feel like nobody goes down there when I play the game, and that's what. Because it's funny
Yeah.
because in Halo there used to be a door there, and I moved it to being a window, and that was
Okay.
just because I had a different cut through route. But now I don't have the cut through route. I think inherently it should be a door, because
Yeah.
there is a portal wall down there, but I don't think inherently it gets used at all. So I think just having it be a door would be very helpful.
Yep. I know I like to portal down there a lot, but when you're actually in like bottom mid, you feel like you just want to just walk through instead of portal through. Because to portal through, you'd have to put your portal up and then walk to the other side of bottom mid.
Fair enough.
I really love how you have a good elevation in the map and verticality. It feels like you don't have to walk far to get from one end to the other, but there's enough levels in it to keep it interesting and complex still.
Yeah, I was really hoping that would be a major benefit to the map, because I think Splitgate has the opportunity to be a very interestingly vertical game. Like, there is so much, because it completely changes the dynamic of verticality when you can just portal up to the top of the map, right? It changes the weight of power. So to me, that's a very interesting thing to play with, and I think I would recommend other map builders at least try and see what they can do with it, because I think that's going to be a big key to exploring the potential that you have when being experimental at the very least with level designs in Splitgate.
Yeah, I personally say the best maps I've been playing are maps that have focused on on verticality. It's just makes for more fun gameplay, especially when it comes to portals. Easy to triple portal around, but when you have to add in the fact that now you're portaling up a bit and adding that elevation of knowing where people are, it can be a little confusing at times, but when it's done right, it's a lot of fun.
I'm just so glad to hear you say all these things, because a lot of them are things that I've been feeling myself, right, about the map. It's just like, I don't know if this is quite right. I want to hear from generally other people if this is better or if this is worse, and so you question yourself a bit, especially like say going into it as a new map. You're just like, God, I really hope people like this, and then so getting to hear this and getting to hear the critiques that I feel are valid, and like that I'm glad to hear somebody else say it because it validates my concerns that I had, is fantastic. So I really appreciate it. Was that all that you had to say about it?
The only small thing I'm noticing going through, it seems like you only got 2 initial spawns for each team.
So it's a 2v2, but
normally
that's why. Because like I said, I don't usually put more than I intend. So that's another point of note. If you want to play this, it is inherently a 2v2 map. But yeah, so speaking of maps though, and like explaining what, going into a bit more depth about the maps, do you want to introduce your map and then go a bit in depth as to kind of how you came up with the design and what it works for?
Yeah, so my map, it's called Falling Star. It was initially made to be a 3v3 takedown map. I started working on it back in March of this year. Through development though, the design kind of grew just a little bit, and now it plays more as a 4v4. Let me pull it up. And I've slowly just been working on the design to see what game modes I can get to work on it as well, because there's a lot of different game modes that we've been making as a community. So where I started with the design was, again, I was going for a 3v3 takedown map. I actually took some inspiration of this map from 2 Splitgate maps, Simulation Hotel and Simulation Delta. And that's kind of where the basis of it started. Let me pull it up. So I've actually just been going through these maps as we've been talking about, just to have a little bit of a reference. So it's a symmetrical map. The idea of it is I wanted players to work around the idea of playing the power positions and power weapons on the map, and to have a little bit of a give and take between the two. So off spawn, you have the decision to either go straight for the two main power weapons on the map, either sniper or SMG. And then there's also two different, well, it's two different, but if it's segmented right, depending on the play, it can be up to 3 different power positions on the map. One is going to be the cubby up at the top. With that, you get a line of sight all the way down to the middle, and then you can also put up portals and portal camp on the 2 different sides of the map. So you effectively get 3 lines of sight down each lane of the map. Yeah,
You're right.
I'm breaking down right now. I'm not.
Well, you okay? It's all good, mate. So shall I just jump straight into it then? Yeah. So, okay. So first thing I want to say about Falling Star, and this is gonna sound corny as hell and properly staged, but it is genuinely one of the most fun times I've had playing Splitgate, especially in the custom map. Like, for the entire time I've been playing Splitgate, like, it is, like, it feels right, and it's hard to like explain that as a quantifiable objective way to measure a map, because it is one of those things where, like, something just feeling like it fits the design philosophy is inherently a hard thing to kind of quantify, because it's just about all the aspects of how it fits in a meta. But to me, Falling Star inherently encompasses like a lot of the movement, a lot of the pacing that I want out of a map, and the gunplay is so like rewarding and fresh, and also the amount of strategy I can put into play is fantastic. Like, there's that bridge thing, and one of my favorite things to do, if you guys play this as a 4v4 on basically any mode, specifically Hill is a really good one for this, but I like to go up on the bridge down by the snipe point, right? And I'll go up there and I'll wait for someone to come by the sniper, and then I'll like wait for someone from the enemy team, and then I'll kill them and then go take the sniper inherently for myself. And it's like a really good, it feels like you're like going hunting on that map. Like, there is like such like a genuine sense of exploration that I feel when I'm playing that map. Like, I'm exploring all these crevasses. There's so much like interesting geo. It breaks up the map really well, and so I feel like I'm genuinely, like, it genuinely feels like a Halo 2, Halo 3 playstyle, where I'm kind of wandering around like SWAT style, like figuring out where everybody is, and you know, like making sure to be cautious going around each corner. And even with the portals, it definitely feels relevant still. Like, there's a lot of people that ping pong around the map with the portals, and that's totally fine, and I like to use them strategically to move around the map as well. But you still get a sense of like caution, because it is inherently an open base map, and there is still a lot of fear you can get from these spaces.
So the main thing I did to help counteract just triple portaling around the map and having that feel oppressive is I, for one, had multiple different portal routes people could take, so you're not stuck to taking one route. But then on those portal routes, I put only single portal walls up, so you can only fit one portal up there. So if someone else has their portal on that wall, that effectively shuts down that portal route, and now you're forced to take a different route around the map. So people who like to triple portal, you're not able to just mindlessly put your portal up and get to the next spot. You actually have to think about what route you're taking and which way you're trying to go.
No, I agree. I think, like I say, because to me, when I first saw it, it's such a simple map, and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to inherently work. It's not. It doesn't feel interesting. But then it's one of the maps where it reminds you that like a simple design can be just as interesting if implemented well. So realistically, but going on that, a lot of the nitpicks I have are very nitpicky. They're very much like clean it up, right? So for me, the biggest problem is there's a lot of readability work that still needs to be put into that map. So
I can agree on that.
I would go into like the specifics about some examples. So a lot of the problems I had with understanding movement on the map was, can I jetpack clamber? Right? Can I actually like jetpack up to like a higher point and then make a successful clamber? Because it felt like a lot of times, oh yeah, I should be able to jetpack up and clamber onto that. But I would jetpack up there and either be too short, or the geo was just weird enough to the point where I just couldn't do it. I'm not sure what that was about. But I think inherently, if you're gonna design like a map like that where it's like there's ledges that feel like you should be able to get on top of, it might just be that like I was too low in a point, or I just messed up the jetpack, but they shouldn't be that difficult. It's kind of like where I'm coming from with that. So because I had generally lots of failed attempts, and some of them were very costly to, because I was just getting chased or something, and I'd put a portal down on one of the higher up points, then jetpack up to try and get onto a ledge to get to it, and I just would miss it, and then I'd just get SMG'd in the back. So that was like a major flaw that I had with that. But moving into like just general UX as well, the ground is very bumpy because of the rock terrain stuff. And I know that you really wanted something unique with that, but to me it almost just reduces the UX factor because you're just bumping around on the rocks a lot.
Yeah, so I originally just did that so I can have some sort of aesthetic to it, or else it was just gonna be a plain gray floor. It's something I've debated even going back and just deleting, because with the tools we have in the map editor right now, it's just not easy to get a good texture that looks good.
Do you think maybe just using rocks for like walls would be a better solution, and then using the gray for floor?
Well, yeah, of course. So I use rocks for walls a lot. This was the first map of the season after they just gave us all the rocks and props. So I kind of went a little nuts with it, just experimenting. Yeah, and I don't think I'm ever gonna do it again. And I've debated just
this
deleting
is one thing
it.
that I think that they should definitely add, and that I think would help a lot, is just having like natural terrain that's like inherently smooth, and you can see the collision, because it's so hard to see where the collision box is on the rocks, and then place them accordingly and judge that.
Well, I actually have examples on some of the rocks where there are invisible collision spots. On one of the rocks I have towards the outside of my map, you can land on the edge of it, and you're literally standing on nothing.
Yeah, because presumably the way they do it is the box is like rectangular, and and then so they've tried to fit a modeled object that's got a lot of polygonal depth, and they've gone, okay, well, it's got to sit within it because we don't want people's feet like clipping through the floor, so they've put it within the rectangle, and then because the edges are all frayed and stuff, it doesn't line up perfectly within the rectangle, so you do get these big areas of negative space that still exist as collision points. So it's understandable, but I just wish those are more even and like readable version. Definitely. But I think I want to go back to some like actual points that I want to bring this back up to, like bring it around to the actual map and discuss the map itself. And these are all good points. These are all things that I'm like, because that was really my only problem, was I think that it just needs readability. And I think with your new understanding of art, because you've also been working on this other map, Mount Wither, and that you've started to learn like how to do like art and composition and stuff. And I think if you apply that same knowledge to the new map and get rid of all the glow in the dark grass as well, unfortunately, might help. But I want to, like I say, bring it back around because I'm aware that we should be moving on to the next section soon. But I think it's really well balanced, and the line of sight specifically I think is great. The amount of times I was like, does this feel too open? No, because like every single time, like there's long lines of sight down each lane, there's lines of sight across the map, but everything's well structured and segmented to the point where there's actually a very small amount of space that you're engaging with, and it's a very linear space that you can predict, you can understand how to engage and how you flow through that area. Like, and it invites you in to keep moving, and as you keep moving, you open up other spaces, and you're engaging that way. And it's a lot of things that people might think, oh, well, that's obvious, every map should do that. But they don't inherently do it well. And that's the difference, right? Is like you can understand the idea of having spaces that are open, but segmented enough to like stop the map being a complete free-for-all, and guide players like with long lines of sights that inherently, intrinsically within those spaces, in those dance floor areas, it is well broken up. So if you're fighting someone across the map, yes, you've got that long line of sight, but there's plenty of areas to dip in and out of cover and then move into other passageways. So it doesn't inherently feel really stagnant and like, okay, I'm just trapped in this long line of sight sniper corridor.
Yeah, and one thing, like that's one thing I do like focusing on is adding a variety of gameplay in maps, and that's having both not only long lines of sights but close points to have those close quarter engagements with the assault rifles, the shotguns, the plasma rifles, or else a whole segment of players will feel left out on your map and just feel like your map's bad or it doesn't feel
so good. The last thing I actually want to say about this map before we close up for this section is I think the sniper's great. The sniper was like an excellent choice for this map. Like I was saying about the sniper lanes and stuff like that, this is what people don't understand about snipers. They're inherently a skill-based weapon, yes, but as soon as you give that weapon to someone who knows how to use it, and you are tailoring a map that works with a sniper, you are inherently giving that person a lot of power to completely dominate on that map. So how you balance that around the geometry and how you like allow players to counteract that threat is super important. And as I was saying about the lines of sight, and as I'm saying about like the way that you like engage with like even just the uphill battle, it doesn't inherently allow the sniper to be extremely excessively useful. You know, there's a lot of like pushback that I can feel, and my team was definitely feeling when we were faced with a sniper on the enemy team, and that to me is like the perfect balance, because the perfect balance with any sandboxing game is allowing one team to dominate with the entire sandbox. Like say one team just gets like there's 3 power weapons and the whole team holds down those 3 power weapons. What is the map doing that allows the other team to at least be equal? Because this is the thing, a good map will never feel unbalanced by default, but will always be giving players advantages and options to counteract any sort of type of threat that they get given. And that's what allows something to be completely unique and completely like transferable across any kind of like match or skill level that you give them. It feels balanced. And that's not to say that people with power weapons shouldn't have the uphand advantage, but it should be as much of a challenge to use those weapons with skill as it should be to fend them off. That's always my thought. So I think it handles it super well. But having said that, I'm blooming going to the loo because I've been drinking so much water. It's so goddamn hot. I'm absolutely busting, mate. So I'm going to nip to the loo. We'll come back and then we'll carry on with the next section. I'm going to leave this running. If you want to leave it running as well, I don't know if you want to go grab a drink or something, but yeah, I need the loo. So
sounds good.
Leaving it running, and then Presley will cut this bit out when we do the editing. Okay, right, back in a sec, lads.
Oh yeah. I don't know how to explain maps. I can like talk about a map, but you tell me to just explain a map, I don't know. I get confused.
Oh, how you feeling?
Good.
Good. Okay. Topics. The funnest thing. So we've gathered 2 topics to talk about today. I specifically sent Yurgy out on a mission to acquire a good level design topic to give all of you boys and girls at home. After that, I'm going to be giving a completely off-topic topic to talk about. But Yurgy, do you want to pose your topic to me, good sir?
Yes, so my topic is about platforming and verticality and just how it generally relates to level design.
So we just, oh my god, okay. There's a lot here. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, that's where I'm going to immediately. I'm like, okay, because you've talked quite a bit about verticality already. That's been a talking point for you for Death Row.
Yep.
And I know you've been working on your vertical map, Mount Wither. I just want to know, what you
for
think.
me, verticality is such an essential part of level design. At least to me personally. I know not everyone will have the same opinion on that, because there are a lot of people who enjoy their 1 to 2 level maps. But me personally, I enjoy a map that has at least 3 to 4 levels on it. It just allows for a lot of fun gameplay, and to me, a game gets boring when you're only looking at one level the entire game. You're not constantly looking up or down, because there's an inherent risk involved in looking up. It's not easy to always just constantly be staring up at the sky or up at the next level as you're playing, because then you're disregarding everything that's going on in front of you. So it just adds that extra level to gameplay.
Yeah, I think there is like a difference between the balance of like power as well when it comes to that, between lower and higher levels. And it's really interesting because we never really thought about verticality too much until probably Halo 5 because of the movement system. That was like the first time that we were like, okay, verticality is like an actual thing, is like super important to how this game works. And I think you'll find with any advanced mobility game, verticality is like super duper like high on the priority list. And I think if we actually go back to like some games that I kind of want to talk about where these sort of motifs came in, see, Call of Duty Black Ops 3 had like a decent range of verticality. It wasn't like a massive amount more than Call of Duty had ever had, but it was still a decent amount so that the wall running systems could work. And there weren't loads of wall running systems inherently, but there was enough, and it was interesting. But then when we pushed into like the advanced warfare and the infinite warfare, I felt that like a lot of the maps really didn't allow you to explore a vertical level, but gave you the opportunity to be very vertical. And that was kind of the problem that I also had with like Halo 5's roster of maps in by default on launch, was a lot of them felt like Halo 4 maps, but they played for Halo 5, and the real only difference I could find was there was like the scale was increased, so between the upper floors and the lower floors there was a height, so you could jump up and clamber. But that was really all I found the difference, really. So when you know you've got a community thing that then takes that idea and really runs with it, I think they have obviously have a lot more time than devs, and this is never a thing that we should say, hey, you know, I don't care about your game sucks. You know, it's never that, right? Devs have a limited time to produce this stuff. They have to figure out the meta, they have to get what they think is best in, whilst under the pressure of producers. Okay, that is a fact. So it's never about that inherently. Yeah. Because when you have a community that's got years of freedom after that to figure out the meta, figure out how it works, and figure out what is the best strategy for level design, then you're gonna start to see what the real game is to me.
The map builders, they have more time than anyone else can have, because to them it's fun. This is what they enjoy doing, and a lot of the people I meet, it's not like they do a lot else. So for them, this is just how they spend a lot of their losers time. And shut-ins. I'm there every winter though, because of how my work works, because that's how I got into it. So I'm unemployed throughout all of winter.
As funny as we make that joke is that it's just like it's a bit of a meme. It's kind of true that like it does take over. Like it's like, because a lot of people, like a lot of people are like, okay, we're gonna go out drinking, or we're gonna go out do a sporting recreational activity, whatever, right? Skating, like a big thing. Like some people will go out and skate for the entire afternoon to evening. Maybe not so much these days, but early 2000s when I was growing up, it definitely was a thing. But now, yeah, I mean, like being online and making stuff this way is I would say akin to like people who do art, like spend time painting and like so it's not really a case of like, I feel like shutting's almost just a mean term at this point, because it's just like, well, no, because as is anybody who just like spends time at home relaxing in the afternoon doing anything else, it's like everybody, all of us go out still, we all do other things, we all have family we see, we all socialize, but
yes,
inherently where we like to spend our time, and this is going to be for everybody, is where your hobby lies. That's super important. But yeah, how does this relate back to verticality?
How did we get down this rabbit hole to start with?
Dude, I don't even know. We got on about, because we were talking about level designers not having as much time as community people.
Yeah, because you're on the conversation of level design in Halo 5 and how the community had to work on the level design of Halo 5 and how you guys are starting to discover the meta. And that's how we started.
But this is all I'm saying, right? Is like, verticality is a new thing. No matter what anybody thinks, it as a prominent driving force to combat, it's new. You still see people fumble with it a lot.
So, I'd say it's not inherently new, but it's being rediscovered. It was definitely a thing back in the older games, back in the early 2000s. It almost felt like it went away for a bit, and now with the advanced movement systems making it easier for people to understand and play the maps, they're starting to make a comeback again. Because I do remember,
if that's the way you feel about it, why do you think it went away?
I feel like as casual players have gone into the gaming area, they tend to be less inclined to want to play the more vertical maps. So game companies have kind of turned away from making them themselves, and now with the advanced movement systems making it easier for casual players to actually go ahead and play vertical maps and not feel like they're at as much of a disadvantage, it almost is becoming easier for them to then play those maps compared to back when FPS was first coming out. You'd have extremely vertical maps, but you wouldn't have a lot of casual players playing on them. It was more of the dedicated video game fan base playing those games.
And I think I should specify when I say this, is like, I don't think there was a point, and I don't think Yurgy thinks there's a point where from 1990 to 2001 verticality was a thing, and then it just did not exist until like 2015 again. That's
not what I mean.
Because like Halo Reach was very vertical for a Halo game, because you had things like Jetpack, you had maps like Sword Base, you had maps like the Spire, which to this day I still think is probably the tallest BTB map in any like arena game.
But you can look at any game from Call of Duty to Battlefield, even Halo, you can argue a bit, to a certain extent. It does keep its verticality in its maps, but even ever since like Halo 4 and even Infinite, there's not even a whole lot of verticality. Like, I'd say one map in particular I can think of in Infinite that plays the verticality well. Beyond that, I can't think of any other maps that really have good verticality.
Do you know which one that is? Do you know the name of it?
I just remember it's the one with the batteries on it. It has like a generator room and everything. One of the first
maps that they put out.
Yes.
This is the game. Can Yurgy and Dyer name all the bloody maps in Halo Infinite? Oh my god, it's got like, everybody called it Aqua or something, or whatever it was, because like that's what they said on the sign. They called it something like that, but it's not called that. It's called Recharge. That's it.
Recharge.
Yeah.
Recharge.
Nice.
Yep.
I'm glad. Thank you for helping
Recharge.
with that. I felt like
yeah.
I was like coming out of like a sleep or something, and you're helping wake me up. Oh dear.
No, yeah, so I feel like out of all the maps in Halo Infinite, that's probably the best example of verticality being used. Between the different catwalks they have to the elevation from where Overshield to the level above that is, I feel like they actually played the
I think
verticality
like a big
well.
part as well that I want to touch on is when we talk about like the thoughts on verticality and like how that fits in. I think verticality is hard to implement. And I think verticality is not only hard to implement because it's such like a balancing act. It's literally like tightrope walking, right? Like to get that right. But it's also a massive balancing act because it's about the way your map's received. People inherently are going to struggle with this. You literally touched on the exact thought that I was thinking with casual players not liking vertical maps. I agree because by default, verticality offers a very unfair bias approach to an interaction. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, so it's basically anyone who knows how to take advantage of that verticality is going to have the upper hand. It's just simple as that, and that's why when implementing it into your map design, you have to understand that any high point on your map is a power point. You got to treat it the same as a power weapon.
It's got to be balanceable. I mean, it goes back to the conversation we were having about the weapon sandbox and how you balance a map with the weapon sandbox, same thing. But I wanted to give this example because I think for a lot of new level designers, a big key is listening to people who play the map and like almost taking that as gospel. Because I had one lad that I was teaching how to do level design in Halo 5. And I always tell this story because it's one of my favorite like moral lessons about or like level designer versus player. And there was a situation where he came to me one afternoon. He was like, "Oh, I'm really annoyed. I really want to change my map. I thought it was working really well, but it's just not." And I said, "Okay, hang on. Why? Because you were really happy about this map. I think it is really good. You've had other people come on and think it's really good that know level design. What's going on? Like, what's happened?" And he explained a situation a few nights back where he'd played it with some random people in a lobby. Some one of his friends and then their friends joined. It was one of those kind of lobbies, and there was a guy on it, and he was having a hard time. And effectively, the way the map works is there's like a big void in the middle of the map, and it goes down to a bit of a death pit, and around the void there's layered rings where from doors you can emerge onto almost like say balcony type things that come out to the middle, so it's a big crossfire section, but further back through those doors is pathways that you can spiral around upwards and flank from. So it's a very, very balanced, fair map with a lot of interesting engagement. Okay, his problem with the map, this player that played the map, his problem with it was that he would go out to one of these doors, he'd go out to one of these balcony ledges, and he was getting shot from above through the big void in the center of the map. And he was trying to shoot back, he was strafing, and he was just falling off the ledge and into the death pit. And the level designer came to me and said, "That's what happened, this is why I want to change it. It's not fair." I said, "Hang on, is that a problem with the level, or is that a problem with the player?" So think about this for a second, right? The level is not inherently unfair, right? The engagements are biased, but the level is not unfair. There is an ability to push back into cover, talk to your team, tell them where the enemy is, and then as a group push around and flank them from different sides. That's a very fair advantage that the map has, and it's really interesting. So realistically, was the player wrong in that situation? And I think they were, because he had a choice. He could stay out there and battle with a losing battle against a player that had the advantage over him, try and like strafe, and then obviously fall into the death pit. Or he could have been a bit smarter about his approach, going, "Okay, there's a guy there, I can't win this fight, I'm going to back off, I'm going to think about this, I'm going to communicate, and I'm going to move." And we find that a lot of like strategic players will think that in the latter of that. But a lot of casual players, not to their disservice, because I'm very much a casual player as well when I play, won't. They'll think in the former, and they'll think, okay, well, I just need to engage, because a lot of arena games, you just want to get on after work. You just want to get on. You just want to engage. You don't have to think. You just want to play a game. You don't want to have to think about all this inner complexity of how you engage with stuff. You just want to be able to shoot people, right? And I think that's kind of where the bar is for things like verticality, in the sense of thoughtfulness. It's a different market, it's a different demographic of players that are going to appreciate it, and you've just got to be prepared. When you go in to design a level, you've got to know who is going to want to play this thing. So be mindful of that, and don't let one person or one type of ideology sway you and think that your level design is bad, because inherently, so long as you understand what you're making it for, you understand the reasons, and you understand the ways that you can counter that situation, put yourself in that situation, think, what would I have done? If you can't find a way where you're able to get out of that situation unharmed, and if anything, come and flank them or take them out from a different position, yeah, maybe that spot is unfair. Maybe it's biased to the point where it's unbalanced and people are just always going to die in that spot. But think about it. Think about it from your own position, and then think about the player. Is the player a casual player? Is the player competitive? What is their experience? What do you think they're really trying to get at with this? So inherently, that's kind of like a topic I want to leave this verticality conversation with, and just have some general thoughts. But I do want to know what people make of this, and especially when it comes to building for demographics. And what is your general thoughts on all of this? Because it is a very interesting and expansive topic that unfortunately we just don't have the time to kind of sit down and go through. And I'm sure we will do later on in another podcast. But no, that's a really good question, Yurgy. I was like, that topic was great. Like, there was a lot that obviously we went through there. Went all around the globe, to be honest, with that one. But yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just such an important topic. I just had to
I
throw
agree.
it in.
But bringing it back around to difficulty and really having to think about and understand all these things, I kind of wanted to bring up my final topic for the day. And I guess generally, it's about overestimating timeframes, or just generally getting in deep with something that you don't know if you're going to be able to do. And I kind of want to relate this to something that I'm doing at the moment as a personal project, the game that we're working on. We've got a bit of a deadline coming up by October. There's some subtle deadlines that we want to try and push out for September. But we've got to take an entire 5-minute section of a campaign level and art it and get it ready for a demo to push out by then, and it's not an easy undertaking. I've had to do a lot of management to get it done, and it's been a very interesting experience, and it's really pushed me as someone who is learning how to manage a team and try and make sure that everybody's working to the best extent, and inherently working with a really solid team of very committed people. But it is stressful still, and I kind of wanted to ask you, because I know I've got a lot of experience with situations where I've either gotten way over my head with a project or a situation, and I wanted to ask you, is there anything like that you've ever experienced?
I'm gonna keep it related to level design, because my Falling Star map's a great example. I was originally, when season 2 started, I was planning on doing this as a project for myself that I was just going to take my time and slowly do. But then someone had asked me to make them a map for a tournament. So I decided that I was going to do this design for that, and I only had 5 days to build it from start to finish. I already had made it once in season 1, so I had most of the design figured out. I just had to go ahead and rebuild it on a new template and with different blocks. So it was stressful. Only having 5 days to build it all out. I really don't even feel like I did my best job, because there's definitely things I wish I would have went back and did different on the map.
Yeah, I think generally, trying to balance personal goals with another person's goals, that is so bloody hard. Yeah. The amount of times I've entered a challenge or a competition, and there's deadline pressures. People change their minds about when they want things done, and then also like they might change their mind about what they want in the design or whatever. So no, God, it's a nightmare. It's like I envy anybody who is fully getting to make art or any kind of creative process totally for themselves, right? And that's all that. Enjoy the time that you have with that design, right? Enjoy the art. Learn as much as you can from it before you get a job in an industry where that's kind of like that creative process is not inherently stifled, but definitely restrained and directed. Or even if you enter competitions, enjoy the ability to learn and always appreciate the fact that like when you are making stuff for yourself, you are truly free to do whatever you want to do. And at the end of the day, forget what anybody else thinks. Even if you put it out there and everybody's like, oh, this sucks, whatever, right? If you're happy with what you've created and you achieved what you set out to achieve, take pride in that and take an amount of like responsibility for how you will then approach your next task. But it's always important to stay critical, and it's always important to stay self-aware, because that's how you grow.
Yeah, and to that point, what I'd say is even if you're getting advice from someone that you personally look up to in level design, if what they're telling you to do with your map, in your heart goes against your true intention with the map, let them know. Tell them that, hey, this is what I'm doing with my map, and this is what I think it's going to happen. I don't think that will work with it. I've actually done that with you, Dyer, as we were going through my maps. There's a couple times when me and you were talking, and I'd be like, actually, I don't want to do that. I want to do this instead. And when I explained it to you, you completely understood, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's your map. Do what you want to do. And what I'd say to anyone else is just keep that mindset. Is if you understand what the intention of your map is, just keep true to that intention, no matter what.
No, 100% agree. But like I say, it's all subjective, and I want everybody to take that away from it. As much as our good friend Jacob will argue, it is all subjective, and it is all defined by you. So with that in mind, we'll leave you with that thought. Please, any thoughts you have on this podcast, any thoughts you have on the topics discussed, leave it in the comments. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you in the next episode of Blocked Out. Thank you for watching. Or listening.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you're doing.
Y'all have a good night. Peace.